All right, just getting warmed up here. How's it going, everyone? I'm a little bit hypnotized by the sounds I hear in my headphones. I thought it might be nice to listen to this and relax a bit and just breathe. And here we are again. Selway's Techno Saturdays. 343 Labs, 343 TV, as usual every day, almost every day at 1 p.m. And today's my day. We had a good one last time, I think. I was really happy with how that went. Hopefully some of you out there tuned in when for Techno Friends with Christian Smith, my longtime collaborator and very good friend. And yeah, I'm looking forward to doing more of those. So we're sort of resetting the cycle today. I'm just, it's a little more low key, and I'm, playing around a bit with Arturia's analog lab and thinking more about a preset-oriented workflow. So yeah, that's what we're doing today. Hello to the chat. Andrew Duke, bright and early as usual. First, you win today. You are the first. Actually, you've literally won recently. You got one of the giveaways, right? Congratulations again. Max Wild, yo. And Max, I know I used to talk about tacos on Techno Taco Tuesday. I haven't been thinking about that so much, but maybe we should one day do something about that. I don't know. Hey, Paul, nice to have you back. Billboard Shah, you are welcome. And Regine, welcome to the chat and to the show today. So, of course, remember, you can always ask questions. I'm here to, it's a two-way street. Questions, comments, throw them in the chat, and I'll do my best to follow along and respond as we go. We're doing a giveaway. I think we've got a $200 Ableton voucher, which we've done an Ableton voucher before. So this is good. That's basically like almost, it's a big chunk out of a purchase from Ableton. So definitely a nice giveaway. So there'll be info in the chat here, a link to check out and sign up. We will be announcing the winner towards the end of the broadcast. This is a broadcast, right? It's so strange to think I'm just sitting here in my living room. Although you can't tell, I've got my fancy new background here. I've got a green screen I'm playing around with, and I've been having a bit of fun working on my OBS layout and using effects and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a nice little hobby to have on the side to like play around with what we can do. And welcome, Mick, from the northeast of England. Glad to have you here. So again, back to sort of the main reason why, or the main subject today, and that is working with presets and then doing that using Arturia's analog lab. Now, I've had it a while, and let's maybe take a look at it real quick. And I've pretty much always just thought of it as, a preset player. But as you can see, this one I just loaded up, I also, there's more stuff going on in there. Actually, you know what? Let's start with just a fresh one. Listening to that mellow loop earlier, I think it really calmed me down. Don't worry, we'll get worked up again, I'm sure, once the beats start going and the music starts flowing. All right, so here's Analog Lab, and okay, the first time you load it up, you won't see this. You'll see like a welcome screen, and it gives you the little tour that Arturia nicely does for all of its plugins. So yeah, it's sort of designed to give you access to all of these different synths in their library, all these different instruments. And, you know, it's right away. You've got your search, you've got your browser with the filters, you've got the list of presets, and then it shows you on the side which instrument you're loading up. And then across the bottom here, you've got a simplified interface. And this is meant to go, it works, tightly with their hardware. And all, these knobs on the left side will be, pre-mapped. The faders will be pre-mapped when you're using their specific hardware. But of course, you can assign any MIDI controller to these. And yeah, it's really great if you just want to dive in and get the stuff quickly. I guess you could, a little bit of an equivalent of this would be, Native Instruments has their interface, with Complete and everything, when you can use their controllers and browse through all of the sounds across all of the devices, rather than having to load each one individually. And that's kind of the case here. So, that's pretty much where I got started here is, normally, nowadays my workflow is most of the time, if I want a particular type of sound, I'll think of first the instrument or the synth or the effect that I need, and then I'll dive in sort of basically from scratch. Sometimes I'll modify a preset, but it's rare that I'll nowadays construct a whole piece of music just from pre-existing sounds. And it's kind of refreshing for me actually to just let the sounds as they are guide my decisions, or figure out how to find the thing that I'm thinking of, like using the browser, using the subdivisions here, the subgroups, the types, the styles to help me sort of nail down different types of sounds, specific types of sounds to get the thing that I'm thinking of. Anyway, I already started this. It's good with our short time here that I have something prepared and not just coming completely from scratch. And I'm actually, before I dive back into Analog Lab and the synthy stuff, to sort of guide my creative process and have a style to start with, this is techno, and the beats and the rhythm are some of the most important things you need to think about. So I started with making a drum groove. And I could have used synthetic drum sounds from Analog Lab to build up something, but I wanted a certain style that was more specific. So I started with samples and a couple of kits. So I'm keeping the preset sort of vibe going on with the drums too. I didn't build up my own drum kits. I didn't do any sound design, other than maybe slightly tweaking or putting some effects on them. So let's check out what the drum groove is doing here. So I'm kind of going for not too hard, actually, kind of grooving, drummy, syncopated, slightly swung kind of a groove, right? You can hear there's some sort of low tone percussion there, conga-like sounds and things like that. I started out just by nearly randomly just picking a kick drum out of whatever was in my sample library here. With this is from some live pack that I downloaded. I don't even know. And I wanted something thumpy, clubby, not too hard, a little bit of brightness to it, and I think I found it. And then the next layer I added, I just went through some of the different drum kits, and this is from this is a preset from this probability pack that you can get from Ableton. And, it's mainly about these Max for Live, these kind of complex probability-based sequencers. But it also comes with some really cool sounds and presets. So I wanted to, quickly come up with sort of a techie percussion loop. And I found this one particular preset, and I had to modify it a little bit. Let's hear what this sounds like. Now, so basically what's happening here is this Dr. Chaos sequencer is playing the notes, right? I could have just drawn these into a MIDI clip as well, but... And there are a couple of sounds in there I didn't like, so I turned them off. And that was pretty much it. Like, there's this little dice button. I just messed up my patterns. Maybe that'll work. So you just click this little roll the dice button and it randomizes the pattern. All right, hopefully that'll work. Bull Effects asks, what's syncopated? And Max Wild answers, syncopated is when notes don't fall on the strong beats and play against the main rhythm of the music. Good explanation, Max. Max is, of course, our resident music theory expert, and he does the Thursday show all about music theory. So, Bull Effects, definitely come back and see Max's show, and he can help you out with more questions like that. All right, so there's my, I don't know if this is still going to work with the groove. I just changed the pattern by randomizing it. Yep, still works. All right, this is simple. Just grabbed a easy, like this is like the first clap sound. I just went through and listened to, I just searched for a bunch of claps and then scrolled through and, oh, that one sounds like it might work, and threw it in there. I didn't even try very hard. Just, it was the first one that, and you know, not too bright, not too noisy, not too long or whooshy, or just sits in there just fine. Right, now this one I did a little more programming, but this one is this Africa drum rack. It's got some different African drum samples in it, and it has effects built in already. And this one was just, loading up the kit, and then I literally just about randomly drew these notes in. I mean, I could try it again. Let's see if I can do this process again to make a drum loop that's interesting, but without, it's a nice technique if you're hesitant about playing on a keyboard or with a drum pad. Maybe your sense of rhythm could use a little practice to get a tight beat going. If you've got good sounds, you can kind of roll the dice a little bit like I did with that sequencer. And I can just literally, all right, I can do this with or without the preview. If I put the little preview button on there, I'll hear the note when I click on it. But if I turn that off and I don't even know what I'm hitting, this is even more sort of by chance. And I'm going to try not to overlap them. I'm just kind of going up and down and, maybe occasionally repeating a note. Oh, my head's in the way. All right, so this is probably not going to sound awesome, but maybe part of it will, and I can just fix it. All right, the velocities are all really low because I had been playing around with that earlier. Let's get those, let's get those fixed. That's actually kind of cool. Accidentally came out great. Let's see if it works with the beats. All right, so one of those samples has a roll in it, kind of a flam. That one, I'm not sure I want to hear that as often, but I kind of like it. I'm just going to duplicate this whole loop, and then now it's playing twice, but the first half I'm going to try, I'm going to try a different drum. So it's only going to do that little flam sample at the end of 2 bars. Yep. All right. So that's, by the way, this isn't exactly a working with presets thing, but in general, working on drum grooves and breaking out of a 1-bar loop, duplicating it and making it different on one half. So you have like an A and a B. And then I could duplicate that again. And now I could think of that could be like a A and B and then another A, B, but that could be like, the first half and the second half with subdivisions. So if I say the fourth bar here has yet another change, then that becomes an alternating variation. So you can quickly create cool drum grooves that change and have fills and variations, and you're not just stuck in that one bar. You can start to think ahead. I'll revisit this more in future episodes when I'm working on arranging. I'll definitely go over this again, but I thought I'd point it out while I'm doing it. So anyway, that's how I came up with that percussion loop. Let's go back to the original one, which is this one. The one I just did was more busy and kind of goes up and down more. This one I started that way, but then I reduced it to be a little more repetitive and rolling like you would want for this style of a techno groove. So, right, and then after that is just the good old standard open 909 hat, which always works. It's you don't always have to use this one, and of course I use other sounds, but I'm last month and this month I've been kind of in this 90s techno mode. So you hear a lot of this sort of thing. Especially earlier types of techno, you're going to hear more of the like drum machine hardware kind of sounds like the 909, etc. And it's all sort of about what you do with it and how you mix and effect process, and that which gives it the extra flavor, which I'll get to eventually with this. Max is asking if I try to use different samples or racks for every track, or do I have go-to racks or packs that I use all the time? Christian Smith and I were talking a little bit about this last week, how he always wanted to use the same drum sounds over and over again, and I always wanted to try new ones. So I guess historically I lean towards trying new sounds, but after some experience I recognize the importance of kind of having signature sounds and like having a certain set of sounds that you go back to. It's like learning to play your instruments. If you keep changing your instrument all the time, it's kind of like maybe a slower progress, where if you just stick with one thing and get to know it really, really well, like a particular synth that you like, or a particular type of drum kit that you like, and just keep using that, it can save a lot of time getting started as well. Working quickly, it helps to have fallback, go-to sounds. I do have a couple. I mean, because I work with Ableton Live in the box so much, and because I teach Ableton, a lot of times I really try to get the most out of the stuff that I have in the library. And I use the bread and butter, like this 909 hi-hat, stuff like that I always go back to. There's a synthetic drum sample pack that I really like, that I think I've pointed this out before. It's actually one of the few. I have. You see how few folders I have in this sample folder here? It's this Wave Alchemy synth drums pack, and these are like, for me, like, I like making sounds like this. When I use synthesizers to make percussion sounds, I like to do these sorts of sounds. So this is kind of like when I want to get something quick and I want to just throw a kit together or throw one sample in really fast that has a certain flavor. Stuff like this that has a character to it that I like, I'll go to. But I'm going to say most of the time I either make it myself or I look for new sounds, especially when I'm trying to change my workflow and come up with something different. Then I will definitely look for new sounds. Right, so let's get back to this. We've gotten through the drums. I'm going to listen to this one more time. And any effects are included in the preset racks, or there are no effects added, although I did EQ, saturate, and compress all of the drums together on a group, just to give it, some extra thump and polish. And once I had this, I was ready to, that's that sequencer, that Max for Live sequencer. Just it's dependent on your transport. Like if the clock is going, it's going. So anyway, once I had this down, I was ready to start preset surfing. And I didn't really, other than the style of the groove, I didn't really have any specific musical melodic ideas. But as soon as I started hearing sounds going through the library, I started to, as soon as something latched, I latched onto something, as soon as something stuck in my ear, like, oh, that could be cool. It sounded good with the drums. I started to play around with it. So hopefully you guys can hear that bass all right. And, I found this sound, just clicked on synths, clicked on the bass and the types, and I wanted, at first I was looking for more bouncy, percussive, sort of plucky basses, but I do that all the time. So then I decided to click on long, which is going to give me sustained good sounds that were designed to be played longer, to have a sustaining kind of a tone. And, I didn't exactly have the melody quite yet. I was just kind of playing some long notes and, all right, no, like I'm literally like, I came up with a simple melody and I will just click on each one of these presets and listen to it in the context. And I thought that was kind of cool. It's got some modulation in it, but that's more than a bass sound. That's like a whole mid-range layer. Although listening to it again, I kind of like the mid-range elements of it. I'm going to try to remember this one. Kind of nice. But against, all right, this is closer to what I was, all right, cool, but maybe a little too much. That one's also way too much. Nice tone, but too wobbly. Sounds like metal. Some crazy stuff. This synth loaded up here, the synthy is really amazing. Difficult to program. Like, how long is it going to take me to find the sound that I had before? That's also good. All right, so let's fast forward a little bit. I can also, if I know the devices already, let's say I know I don't want the Jupiter, or I know I don't want, or if I want a specific one of these, I can narrow down the instruments. And I think I ended up finding one here in the synclavier. I think it might have, let's try this fretless one. That's it. This is the one that caught my ear. This kind of deep growl, but not too bright, but it still has a heavy weight to it. And yeah, Robot Dharma just commented the growl that I started with was great. Could feel it more than hear it. Well, the part of that is who knows how much of that sub is coming over the streaming audio. But yeah, it's definitely like, it's powerful, but it's not getting in the way, and it's leaving me space for musical elements on top. And then, so sort of the next thing to look at here is, all right, I'm loading up a preset, and I have a melody, and and how quickly you come up with the melodic idea depends on sort of your experience and how comfortable you are with playing or improvising, or whether you draw in notes, right? This one I actually just played it, just recorded myself playing around while I went through the presets. And the next thing for me to think about is expression. Because when I design my own sounds, I'm always thinking about how the sounds can change, how the articulation is moving, per note and then over time, and how I might use MIDI controls or automation envelopes to modify that sound. And all of these presets have a limited number of pre-assigned controls, and it's simplifying the interface for, like, if you don't have as much experience working with all the parameters of the synth, this is just giving you enough to tweak a little bit, to customize and modify without getting lost in the weeds. See if I have let's arm the MIDI so I can play. Right, so there's this little extra sort of modulation going on. I was playing with the mod wheel a little bit, and it gets a little bit more wobbly, so. And so the first thing I start doing is playing around with what are the knobs doing? Nope. Right, if you know anything about FM synthesis, once you start playing with the tuning or the ratio of anything in an FM synth, it starts to get brighter or out of tune or crazy. So that's definitely something to watch out for and be careful with. We have the amount, which is doing something just sort of subtle there. All right, there's vibrato, I can leave that. There's detuning, I can leave that. We have some effects controls here. There's a nice wide chorusing effect on that, which sounds pretty good. I'll just leave that where it was. I probably don't want to add reverb here. It's already sort of close to muddy in a way. I don't want to make it more washed out with a bunch of reverb on this sound. All right, and then those are just sort of like set, and I could small tone controls, that kind of thing. And then on the right side are the faders, and that's how everything is moving. You have envelope times, so slow, fast. I can control how the FM is modulating over time. So that's making sort of a slower rise. All right, so those are the FM envelopes, and then we have attack and decay just for the amplitude, how loud it is. A little clickier with the shorter attack, smoother with the longer attack. And I mean, I didn't touch this sound at first. The only thing I did was play with the mod wheel, because it just was exactly like the vibe was great right from the beginning. So no really need to change it, but at least now I'm aware of what I can modify later if I want to use some kind of automation or something. All right. Now it seems like I kind of broke the sound a little bit. Now I'm listening to that modulation with the mod wheel, and it's not quite what it was. So I'm just going to reload the preset. Where'd she go? There we go. Better. Small difference, but, that's what I liked about it. So the next layer is basically I took the MIDI from the bass, and this style of techno, it's pretty common. You might double that bass melody with a higher octave with a brighter sound. So that's sort of what I started out thinking, is to give this not, play the same melody, but give it a different atmosphere or a different sort of vibe. Let's actually, I'll show you what I did, and then let's try it again with a different sound. All right, so this sounds a lot more complicated. I've ended up loading up a pigment preset, which has a lot of complex modulation, and those extra notes you're hearing are actually coming from inside of the synth. I didn't play those. All right, so let's come back to that. What I'm going to do is go through that same sort of process. I have a lead track over here. I'm going to copy my bass part over to the lead, and let's find another, load up another analog lab on this track. Actually, there's one there already, isn't there? See, I was prepared and I totally forgot. All right, let's hear what we've got. I'm just going to solo this. All right, so we're hearing a bass sound. Let's go to synths, leads. Now for style, do I want acid? Do I want aggressive? Do I want ambient? Any one of these could be cool. At this point, I need to just sort of try something. Let's try brights and see what comes up. Okay, no. I think it's going to be helpful to hear this in the context of the bass and the drums. So let's... All right, Max says acid. Let's go for an acid style, whatever that means. You know, whoever programmed these sounds. No. It's getting weird in here. I'm going to try something. I'm going to bring this up an octave. So I also realized that what I did here, I copied the bass, but the bass also that MIDI notes came over to the other track, but the mod wheel is still going off, and that's not working with some of these sounds. I was like, what's all this weird modulation? I didn't do that. Oh, yeah. So we want to be aware of that when we're copying MIDI parts back and forth between different instruments. If you are using envelopes or MIDI expression, let's actually get rid of that modulation. I can just right click and choose clear envelope. And that should play back normally now. What's up, Nacho? Thanks. What's up, Begonia and Mike? Glad you like the new camera situation. Yeah, it's fun with the... This is what it actually looks like. Just me and green. All right. I like that too. It's smooth with little bends in it. You know, and just like I always do when I make my own sounds, like as soon as I'm got this musical idea down and I'm playing around with the sound, I'm trying to figure out which parameters to maybe play around with, and always the filter cutoff is like just the easiest thing to go straight to right away. It isn't the only thing, but it's a fun place to start. Regina, is it Regina or Regine? Asks, John, did the pigment melody you add come from Arturia? No. Well, okay. The one that I loaded up, I showed you just before this sound, it was a little more complex. And yes, there was something different going on there. We should look at that real quick. In this case, the melody that's playing on the lead that sounds that I'm going through now is my bass melody. I just copied that MIDI over and put it on the other track. And so it's just layering on top of the bass. And, you know, I'm not sure about this sound. I think but you see the process here is it's kind of quick in a way. I came up with the bass melody and then I'm using that to create another layer. I may go back and write something different with this later, but right away I can start finding the sound that gives me the energy and the feel that I want. So here we go again. All right, let's go back to some I like that. It's got that swell in the middle of it. right, so there's a lot of potential in there, I think. Let's see. I've been following along with the chat pretty well. It's a nice, easy pace today. You guys are asking questions, and I'm answering them as I see them. Haven't missed anything yet, I don't think. We're a little bit past the halfway point, so let's just take a moment to remind everyone why we're here and who we are, who I am. I'm John Selway. You can see that very clearly when I come back to the welcome screen. Yep, that's me. And I'm an instructor for 343 Labs and one of the presenters for 343 TV. This is Selway's Techno Saturday. 343 Labs is a music production school in New York and Berlin, offering online courses and in-person courses. And, you know, back in March when things changed in a big way, we started up 343 TV as a way to reach out to a wider audience and share what we do, you know, to give you a window into what goes on with us as instructors and as musicians, and then also give you an idea of, you know, what our classes are like. We also do workshops and special events every now and then. You can probably see down below me in the YouTube window here, there's some links. Please check out our websites and see what we have to offer. Please follow, please subscribe, please do all of those things that streamers love to ask their viewers to do. You know, so you can keep following along. And remember, even if you don't do that, we're here almost every day at 1 o'clock. Except for tomorrow. I don't think we have anything tomorrow, but Monday we'll have tips and tricks with dolltr. So definitely come back for that. Of course, I mentioned Max Wild is here. He does Theory Thursdays. Abe Duque does his basics on Fridays. TAETRO has Tuesday. TAETRO Talks. Wednesday is Lewis Beck with the hybrid studio. So yeah, a lot of content for you guys to keep coming back for, and we're always looking for new things to talk about and to show you. And anyway, thanks to all of you who have been following along with us all this time, and thanks to anyone here who is new. Welcome. And also we have been doing giveaways, and our giveaway this week is a $200 certificate for Ableton. There, you should have seen a link in the chat where you can sign up for that, and we will be announcing a winner at the end of this show. So Max says, take John's synth class. Yeah, please. It would be fun. I can tell you just a little bit about it, since Max mentioned it. It's synthesis and sound design for producers, or is it sound design and synthesis for producers? Whatever you want to call it. It's synthesis and or sound design. And the for producers part is really, you know, how I think about synthesis and making sounds musically from a production and composition and creative standpoint. So, you know, you can learn about how synths work, and you can learn recipes for doing certain types of sounds, and you can, you know, follow the steps to create a specific thing. And of course, that's fine. And there's tons of YouTube tutorials out there that you can follow for different genres, and so on. But I like to look at it from a kind of a slightly different way. And that is, you know, understanding enough about the different types of synthesis and sound design possibilities there are, the tones, the textures, and learning to listen for those details. And so it's like there's some ear training involved, like how to break sounds down, how to hear a sound in a piece of music and sort of hear what's that doing? What are those elements? How are they changing? Why, you know, and learning to hear the difference between when it's a melody that you wrote versus like, let's say, a modulation or a change in the sound itself. Like was that effect that you're hearing, that musical thing in the synth, or was it played by somebody? You know, learning to hear that kind of stuff. That's a big part of it. And then understanding the basics, at least, of how these different types of synthesis work, and then how to approach finding your own sounds with an understanding of a little bit more of an understanding of these tools that you have at your disposal. And so I definitely, you know, anyone who joins my class, I'm encouraging you to bring your music in, share your music, and of course, homework assignments or whatever, but like whatever you're working on, and working on sounds in the context of what you are trying to create. So that's my spiel for my my course. Hopefully that sounds interesting to some of you. If you want to know more, please visit the website, or you can ask right here in the chat. You can ask 343 Labs, Maxwell, any of these guys. They can give you more information about the school. Right. Nacho, thanks. Glad you like the new setup. This the blurry Ableton background, that I was trying to figure out what to put behind me. It was just black, and that's kind of cool, but also sort of boring at the same time. So this is a little more nice and colorful and cohesive. Let's get back to the music now. So, all right, let's look at this other follows bass part. This is a little more complicated, how it came out this way. So as you can see, this is the MIDI, and it's the same melody as the bass. But we're hearing something totally different. What's happening? You can still kind of hear how the main sort of contour of that melody. But then there's these other notes and things happening. Some of it is echo. Now, going inside of Analog. So this is a thing I didn't realize about Analog Lab until I used it. And I think this may be because I have the whole V collection. I have all of the individual plugins that are, that Analog Lab plays sounds from. And I, correct me if I'm wrong, someone out there who's a more advanced user. But I can click on that little pencil edit button and go in, and this is the full, or I think nearly the full Pigments interface. So I'm like loading up Pigments inside of Analog Lab, and I can go in here and like totally do every little small detail, right? I'm not sure. I think I'm guessing if you have Analog Lab only and you don't own all the individual plugins or the whole pack, you may not be able to have this level of editing. But anyway, this was part of this is only literally the second time I've used Analog Lab. I'm familiar with most of the plugins the instruments inside of it, like Pigments, which is something we use in the class actually. So this was one of my things that I was curious, like how much control do I have with Analog Lab, or is it simply just only loading presets with limited control? So it's both. You can just only play back the preset, and then you have these pre-assigned controls for the Analog Lab interface, but then also you have this option to go in and edit. So what's happening with the sound is there's a bunch of different powerful modulators, ways of changing the sound. And this function modulator, it's letting you, it's whoever designed the sound, but you or me or whoever who would be doing this, it's letting you create your own shape. So it's not just a one-shot envelope or an LFO. You can design any shape you want, straight and curved. You can add breakpoints and make, and what this is basically operating as a sequencer. It's doing a pitch modulation. And you can hear every time it jumps up to that second breakpoint that I'm pointing at, it's going up like an octave plus a minor third or something. Right, and then this time control here determines how fast that function is repeating, and it's synced to the clock. So now it's doing eighth notes, and we're hearing more of the sequence as it on the longer notes. It's creating a more complex modulation of the pitch, but we're hearing that as a new melody. And it's also, because it's not a chromatic scale, and these breakpoints are taking the pitch ever so slightly out of tune, and I like that. I like that it's not absolutely perfect, and that's something that you can do with modulation. Is you can do a musical sequence, but then the values are tuned however you like, and you can kind of experiment with being. It's not exactly like alternate tuning as it would be playing an alternate keyboard layout, but it does sort of give you that possibility to do subtle tuning changes. So now it's doing like a seventh, but it's slightly sharp, so it's a little bit out, but in a nice way. Anyway, I like that kind of subtlety. So I see in the chat people are talking about Analog Lab and the level of detail that you have, and it looks like I am correct. You have to have actually own the other plugins in order to be able to load them up with their full interface inside, which makes total sense. And it looks like, just posted in the chat, last chance to enter the giveaway for the $200 Ableton voucher. Let's see what else I have going on here. A couple of stabs that I was playing around with. And go. It's a little bit sort of a housey, Chicago-y, deep house move for me. This is like, if anybody familiar with like Chez Damier, some of his classic tracks have these little sharp, funky chord stabs. I love this kind of a sound. And then I have another layer here, which is a brighter, this is a really digital, bright sound. Let's take that cool reverb off there for a second. So, this is the second synclavier sound that I used in this, and I was kind of drawn to this one because I learned about this synth when I was just a kid, and this was like, you know, the unobtainable, never would be able to have something as big and powerful and as expensive as the synclavier, and now it's like in a plugin, and I could, you know, have all this cool complex. It's like old school sounding, but it's also so, you know, it's FM and other, it's really a cool sounding, distinctive, vintage yet still fresh, modern sounding synth. So this was fun to play with. Anyway, so it's got this really razor sharp edge to this chord stab. And come on, play. What is going on? There we go. So I liked how it was, you know, it's almost orchestral, right? It's super, super bright, and it really cuts through the mix. And I'm kind of, you know, these guys are sort of playing off each other. Like you hear the lower, darker stab, and then alternating, that brighter stab comes on top. And these again started as, you know, I did this MIDI clip, and then I copied it over onto another track and modified it so that it's only playing every other time. And, you know, that simple. It's kind of like I did, you know, earlier with the drums, taking the drum loop, doubling it, and then adding a variation. You know, here I'm starting with a part, and then I'm duplicating it, and then I'm changing it. And then thinking about, you know, in the first half we hear one sound, in the second half of the sequence we hear both of them. And then I thought it would be great. All these other sounds, all the presets, they all have delays in them, and I wanted to add space to it without having another echo. So I went for a Valhalla reverb. This is a free one that came out fairly recently, the Supermassive, which is kind of a delay and reverb at the same time, sort of a hybrid thing, really unique, awesome sounding free plugin, and that's what's doing the big swell after that chord stab. What happened? I accidentally pressed stop by mistake. There we go. This just kind of fades in. You hit it, and then I really like that. It's like atmospheric and rhythmic at the same time. So now, what do I got to do? I got to fix that lead. It's not fitting. Let's look back at the chat for a little bit. Somebody asked something about native instruments. TS Projects asks, how do I think Arturia's plugins sound in comparison to their competitors like Native Instruments? Generally very good. I think I've been really happy with the sound quality of everything I've tried so far. You know, I think as long as you're, you know, making instruments sound good altogether. It's, each instrument has its own character, and then one company over another may have certain characteristics that keep coming out based on who's programming them. I mean, Native Instruments has so many different developers, like subcontractors. Like they have in-house programmers, and they also hire out to other companies that make content for them. So the sound of NI is just like, it's so broad. Arturia is a little smaller, and it's, I think, probably more in-house. And, I guess they do have a sound. Pigments is very clean, for example. And then, but, once you get into the virtual analog stuff, it's sort of about how well they can capture that hardware sound. And I think they do a really good job of it. So, generally they do sound really good. They've gotten better, for sure, since the beginning, and they sound really good right now. What else have we here? Oh, Regine Siller. John, what's the name of that chord stab? The name of it? The preset? I can give you the name of the preset that I chose. The chord itself, we can look at, see which, I did it by ear. I wasn't thinking music theory. I was just quickly drew in some notes. But we can take a look at that, and let's look at both, since, both matter. Like how you play a sound is as important as the sound. All right, so it's literally just a simple triad. And somehow I ended up playing in A sharp minor. And then the name of the sound is, this is one of these synclavier, it's nervous partials. The complexity of that sound comes from the complexity and the detail of this synth. When it's talking about partials are like individual frequencies or individual sine waves. And, this particular synth gives you some control over the partials, or you could also think of them as overtones or harmonics of the sound. And synths that give you that kind of control are able to create very complex, bright, detailed sounds. With FM synthesis and additive synthesis, where you're able to control the harmonic content or the partials, the individual frequencies of the sound. So there's some kind of crazy modulation going on in here that's giving it that complexity. That's, like I think I said before, it's like it's orchestral in its complexity. It doesn't sound like an orchestra, but there's a lot going on in just that one simple triad. That same chord played on a piano is going to not have anywhere near the energy and the excitement in this context. I'm not talking about like you can't make exciting music on a piano. Just for that moment in this groove that I'm making, a piano note would not do the same energy. It's all about that sound and how sort of, detailed and bright it is. Cool. Yay for stab, say Begonia and Mike. Definitely. I mean, I love sort of chord stabby techno. Anything from like deep dubby kind of basic channel chord stabs to more energetic, bright, uplifting energy like this. All right. We are almost out of time. I can't believe how time has flown. I thought I was going slow today. So I'm going to just listen to this a little bit more and maybe see if I can find a sound for this lead layer that fits better with the other elements. There's a lot of no's in here. I don't mind that. It's inoffensive. Right, I'm going to take the filters off. I'm going to have more choices now. I kind of like this one. But then, yeah, these guys are fighting. I think I made this one a little bit too complicated now when I changed the function. I don't know, let's see. Okay, let's show the slow that down. Better slow. All right, so it's probably going to take me a little bit longer than the time we have left to fix that. But one thing I can point out is sometimes when you're coming up with elements, it can be tempting to try to make everything fit all playing at once, but that's not really necessarily how your arrangement's going to go. It could be that lead sound that I kind of liked is great by itself, and then in another section, it won't ever play on top of that other one. So that's another good thing to do. I mean, it's just sort of generally when you're composing this kind of music is it's so easy to just layer, but sometimes you need to remember, okay, different sections have different things playing, and so when you're adding elements or looking for a sound that fits, it doesn't have to fit with everything necessarily. So looks like we have our winner. Congratulations to John Henderson for winning the giveaway $200 Ableton certificate. That is awesome. Put it to some good use, hopefully. And I guess it's time. It's almost time. We've got, I don't know, a couple minutes. Just want to make sure I have covered the chat and didn't miss any questions. Looks like we pretty much got it covered. So Mick Pattison says Mellotron is cool. Yeah, I haven't played with the Mellotron much. It's got such a specific kind of vintage sound to it, but I think there's got to be some unique things to do with it. Begonia and Mike mentioned searching for stab. With Analog Lab, you can also just, remember to search for a lot of the names of the presets may have the thing you're looking for, even if those subcategories don't. You can still find stuff by just searching for the sound or the instrument type that you're thinking of. And I think we're going to call it. I'm going to stop. I know it's like a minute or so early, but I think we've had a good run here. I've got to go do some family stuff. So once again, this was Selway Techno Saturdays 343 TV every Saturday, 1 o'clock. Make sure you come back and join us on our upcoming days. And next up on Monday, nothing tomorrow. Monday, we have Doll Trick. So please do come back. And thanks again to everybody who joined in the chat and asked questions. Congratulations once again to the winner of our giveaway. Enjoy that, and we'll see you again next week. Adios.